Okay, welcome everybody. Matt Dorian here, host of the 20-minute sprint session by Triple Session. Let's start the clock. 20 minutes. We are going to jump right in. Today's topic, rapport building tactics. Some rules of engagement here before we get started. 20-minute sprint training. What are we talking about here? 20 minutes on the nose. It's meant to get you guys in, learn, sharpen up on a specific skill, and then back out to jump back on the phones, emails, demos, whatever you need to do, especially now this week, end of month, end of quarter, got a lot hanging on the line. I'm going to hold on for 10 more minutes after the training is done, open it up to some Q&A. If you guys have any questions specific to this topic of rapport building tactics, I'm going to hold on and have a little open Q&A. The order of operations is right in the chat button here at the bottom of the screen. Pop the questions in as we're going along. It's first come, first serve on that stuff. So I'm going to just go in the order that the questions are entered, and we're going to jump right in. Everything that you're going to see here today is pulled from the latest track that was added into Triple Session. We have a skill track that we just dropped this week on this very important topic of rapport building. The skill track is put together by some of the thought leaders in the space. So a lot of the content that you're going to see today and a lot of the best practices that we pulled together come from Mary Daphne, Mark Wayshek, Josh Braun, Jordan Belfort. That's right, Jordan Belfort, the wolf. We called the wolf. We're sending the wolf. Yep, we got them all in the skill track, plus a few other thought leaders. I make a couple appearances in this skill track and Triple Session as well. But let's jump right in. Let's see what we're talking about here. First, we got to state the problem. When we talk about rapport building, sometimes it just flows, right? Sometimes it's natural. There's that natural chemistry that comes together from whomever we're talking to, and sometimes not so much. Sometimes it's really a challenge. So it's not so much why is rapport building a challenge or why is it hard? It's when is it hard? When do we not have that chemistry? When is it not necessarily built into the conversation and built into the dynamic that we want to have with people? And there are four specific reasons that tend to come up that create challenges with rapport building. One, it's the shadowy figure that we don't know anything about, the unknown, someone brand new that we're thrust into a conversation with. First call, either we're opening up a new sale or we're the first time on the phone with a prospect and we don't know anything about them. We're coming in blind. Maybe it's an inbound call and we just are meeting them, or maybe it's at an event and we're meeting them in person. We don't know anything about this person. We have to build rapport from zero. That can be tricky when it doesn't immediately click for us and it's not naturally there. Also, it's hard when we lack control. We've all been in those sales calls and those situations where somebody will jump in and they're just blasting us with question after question after question. If they're asking the questions, they control the flow, the pace, the meter of the conversation. We want to build rapport. Rapport is typically a two-way street. How can we build rapport when we can't get a word in because we're dealing with someone that's domineering, grabbing hold of the steering wheel, and we can't get in and have any of that back and forth? It's also really tricky when the pressure is on. And typically the pressure is on either in group settings where you have maybe rapport with one person, but now there's person 2, 3, 4, 5 around the table, and you know that you want to have rapport with as many people there, but the clock is ticking, you only have so much time, and you need to get into the meat of what you need to talk about relatively quickly. How can you build rapport going around the table when you have one person there and you're already on the clock and under pressure? Also, what if that person that calls you up and they're blasting you with questions said, give me the price, what's the price, how much does it cost, what do you do? They're putting the pressure on you to deliver them answers, to get them what they want. So you don't want to violate that and work against them and frustrate them and piss them off, because that's not going to be how you build rapport. Well, at the same time, if you just give them everything that they are asking for, you're not going to be able to get in and especially not only build rapport, but especially get that key information that you need to have a successful call. That's a third area that really comes up. It makes rapport building hard. And then unresponsiveness. Somebody typically on a phone call or on a web conference, especially when the screen is off, You have no responsiveness, one word answers. You don't know if they're there. You don't know if they're giving anything back. There's not a lot of connectivity. They're just not there. So you don't even know if there's a pulse on the other end of that call. So that makes it really difficult because you're sending a lot out. You don't know exactly what you're getting back. Those four issues typically come up on a regular basis, and they will sabotage your ability to build rapport. But why do we need it? What is this whole rapport thing anyway? Why is it so critical? Why do we want it? What's the bottom line value that we get from taking time to build rapport? Well, first, we have to understand affinity bias, this subconscious underlying bias that we all have to essentially want to work with and matriculate toward people like us. We feel more comfortable with people who behave like us, sound like us, have the same kind of interests that we have. That's where the connectivity does. It's not always intentional. Sometimes it's below the surface. When we have that matching with other people, that comfort is built in. So when we have that comfort and we have that matching, we naturally tend to drop our guard a little bit more, open up, and feel more relaxed. You want that with all of your prospects. You want that with all of your clients, so you can get that level of comfort. There's huge value in overcoming and playing into that affinity bias a bit. Also, engagement. When you have rapport, you can have better engagement, right? You need somebody to keep coming back to the conversation. If you run a small, tight sales process, the one call process, you need a lot of engagement and back and forth on that one call. If it's much more elaborate, long-term enterprise sales process, you need that engagement over an extended period of time, weeks, months. Some sales processes are more than a year long in sales cycles. You need to have ongoing engagement. If you don't have rapport, it's really hard to go uphill against that engagement metric and keep that person wanting to come back, wanting to work with you, because you don't have that comfort, that trust, that comfort level and that affinity together. And trust is critical. We all know that trust is the key ingredient in sales. If somebody doesn't trust you and trust your business, they're never going to buy from you. Rapport is the seed of building that trust. Rapport starts to build comfort. Comfort starts to build familiarity, and comfort and familiarity over time will sow the seeds of trust. We need that. It's really hard to build trust when you don't feel that connection and that sync with another person. When you have that rapport, it doesn't automatically mean trust is going to be there, but it's really hard to have rapport when you don't have trust. And finally, communication. All of this comes together with great communication in sales. We work in the field of communication, right? Educate and gain agreement from strangers. We can't communicate, we can't effectively do our jobs. And communication is a two-way street. Challenger sale, most of us on this call have read it. We know it like the back of our hands. The challenger sale tells us that rapport builders actually finish last in the metrics on success in being able to effectively win the day to get more sales. It's the challenger sale that actually does the best as far as productivity. But in order to challenge somebody to think differently about their world, you have to still have an element of rapport. It's not the asshole sales process, it's the challenger sale process, right? If you just challenge and you're a hardliner, people are going to shut down. They're going to be like, man, you're combative, you are abrasive, you're pushy, I don't want to deal with you. But if you've built rapport and you have that connection, now you've built that wallet, that credit card that you can swipe to then go back and challenge someone later and say, hey, Mary, hey, Mike, you know what? The way you're looking at things might not be the best way for your business right now. And I think I better explain why based on what you mentioned to me earlier. You can challenge somebody to think differently about their business when you have that bedrock of rapport. If you don't have it, it's going to be really hard to try to turn somebody's mindset around. Again, all of these tactics, all of these best practices that we're about to go over right now in solving this are all just pumped inside our new 11 session track inside Triple Session. 8 thought leaders there. I just explained a few of them right there. There are 7 key takeaways that I've pulled together from this track. We got 10 minutes to crash through them. We're going to go through one at a time right now. Skill track takeaway number 1, we have to redefine what we understand rapport to be. Rapport is not knowing somebody's middle name. It's not talking about the weather or the game last night. It's not knowing the kid's birthday. Fundamentally, rapport is connection. And in order to have that connection and that sync, we need to understand what's on the other side of that phone, of that web conference, or the other side of that set of eyeballs that we're looking into. It's not so much you need to connect with me, it's I need to connect with you, and I need to understand what's going on in order to do that. There's a lot of empathy and a lot of active listening that has to happen. It's not looking at the newsreel and saying, hey, I found a restaurant that is in your market that I'm going to ask you if you've ever been to, or I'm going to find out something that went on the news last night in your backyard and bring it up. It goes deeper than that. We have to understand what that fundamental foundation is to really start the framework of rapport building. Takeaway number 1, understand that it's about connection on the bottom line, connecting with another person in their terms. We're going to talk about exactly how to get there in a minute. Skill track takeaway number 2, this is missed by so many people where they do light work and they just shoot from their hip and they just try to freelance when they get on a call, and when they start to talk to someone, they don't prepare. Preparation is key in every part of a sales process. It is mission critical when rapport building. Do your homework. If you want to understand what you're connecting to, understand who that other person is as much as you possibly can. If you're not thrust in cold on that call, cold into a conversation, if you're not just picking up a phone and having to go blind into that rapport, do your homework. If an SDR is setting up a call for you, look at those notes and understand what the SDR is telling you about how that person behaves and who they are and what they care about. Do your homework. Look at their LinkedIn profile. Look at their social media. How do they comport themselves? What do they talk about in their bio on social? Is it very flowery and open and expressive, or are they much more to the point? Do they have a big smile on their social media, on their LinkedIn profile, or is it, I'm doing business right now? Their picture can tell you so much about what you're getting into before you even talk to anyone. Do your homework, prepare, plan, know exactly as much as you possibly can about the person you're about to talk to. Takeaway number 2, preparation. One of the thought leaders that we have in the track that we just launched, Riaz Menji, has a great quote on this: over prepare to improvise. And what he means by that is the more that you know about the other person, the more that you're going to be able to pivot and be agile and navigate through that conversation when you are in there. If you know 7 things about somebody before you get into the call, you're not going to talk about all 7 things. You're probably only going to talk about one of them, but you're going to have 7 menu options to go to improvise on that conversation when you get in there. Understand as much as you possibly can. Preparation is key. Skill track takeaway number 3, communication styles. This goes back and connects directly to takeaway number 1, redefining what connectivity is. Understanding a communication style is critical to understand how to connect to the other person when you're building rapport. This is especially valuable when you don't have the luxury of building any kind of a preparation or background. If you're thrust cold right into a call or have to just jump on without a lot of prep work, one thing that you can do immediately to start to diagnose that connectivity is understand what the communication style is. Are they analytical? Do they like numbers, data, asking a lot of questions? Driver, getting right to the point, fast paced? Are they expressive and like a big story? Or are they a little more set back and amiable and inviting? Understanding and being able to read those communication styles, actively listening to how they communicate, can instantly tell you where you need to connect with them. This is a formula for you to diagnose what that connection is that you need to plug into. So what am I trying to plug into here? Is it 2 holes? Is it 3 holes? Is it 4 holes? You can understand what that is. if you understand where they are on this social styles matrix and understand, okay, this is a 4-hole plug. I'm going to put the 4 holes in because it's analytical and I'm going to plug right into that. This is a formula for quickly diagnosing how to understand what rapport means to the other person and then adjusting with it. And the adjustment is key. It's Darwin in its finest. It is not the smartest or strongest that survive in rapport building tactics, but it's the one that is most responsive to change. You need to be agile. You need to have balance. You need to understand how you need to morph to this communication style of who you're talking to effectively start to build that rapport out. Skill track takeaway number 4, mirroring and matching. So part of what a lot of the thought leaders talk about in our skill track is mirroring and matching. Some of you know this already. If you have studied it, it's a great way to freshen up and button up those skills right now in the track. What this means essentially is actively listening, not only reading that social style and those mannerisms, but working with that person to give it right back to them. This isn't about being disingenuous and changing who you are. It's about adjusting the style with which you communicate in order to go back to that other person. If they are fast-paced, you're faster paced than normal. If they slow it down, you're slowing it down. If their body language is shifting or putting out a certain energy, you're shifting and you're putting out that same energy. Again, that affinity bias means that we're going to get along more with people that we have some symmetry with. Mirroring and matching and reading how that works is going to serve you well, especially in the early days of rapport building. Skill track takeaway number 5, tone. So much of what we do in sales coaching and sales training focuses on what to say. So much of the results that we get from sales is how we say things and how we communicate, not the words that we're using and not that word choice. Understanding your tone, understanding your body language, understanding what kind of energy you're putting in, that is going to be your most useful asset in building rapport with people. People's bullshit detector is really sensitive. They can tell when you're being disingenuous. They can tell when you're reading off a script. And a lot of us are reading off a script that was never written on paper. It was written inside our minds. We've been in our jobs so long that we've said the same thing and done the same thing so many times. We're oftentimes on autopilot. You got to get off autopilot, kill the robot, and just be friendly and open and genuine with how you. Sometimes you got to get into an actor's like mindset and remember you're playing a part here, and that part you're playing is yourself. It's crazy. We get out of who we are and we turn into robots sometimes because we've done the job so many times. You got to get back into and treat every call like it's the first and be genuine and natural and relaxed. That's going to serve you best when you're building rapport more than anything that you could possibly say. Josh Braun has a great quote in the session that's in our skill track. If you don't sound trustworthy, you won't be able to start many conversations at all. You need to sound trustworthy, and robots don't sound trustworthy. That's why salespeople are going to have jobs long before the AI revolution is over. Skill track takeaway number 6, be a subject matter expert. That voice tone comes through in your authority, and your authority and tone and confidence will be in direct relation to how comfortable you are to navigate your industry, your thought leadership in your market, and knowing your customer. When the subject matter comes up, the subject matter should be known inside and out. The one subject matter you should know more than anything is not your product or service. It's not even the problem that you solve. It's your customer. You should know your customer's world better than anyone and be able to relate to that and bring up real stories of people exactly like them that you've worked with. And finally, skill track takeaway number 7, rapport is not a one-time event that we have in the beginning of the sales process and then we put it away and we're done. We've built rapport and that's it. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We need to think of rapport building on an ongoing basis. Every call we have, every email we send, every little piece of sales enablement that we send over, and everything that we work with our clients on is a rapport building opportunity. Think of all of those interactions that you have with the client and make sure that you're working together to build rapport and add to that value over time. Trust is consistency over time. Rapport, again, are the seeds of that trust. Rapport case that I had once, I was dealing with a guy that I felt looked like this, Bill Belichick. It was somebody on the other end of a call where it's like very domineering, very on top of things, just told me exactly what he wanted. I want the price, give me that. And my response to that, after listening to it and reading it, I wanted to develop a relationship with this guy. He was domineering. He wanted to make it happen the way he wanted to on his pace, and he wanted his answers. And I wanted to develop rapport. How did I do that? I had to give him what he wanted, but I need to make it a two-way street. I said, okay, man, I'll give you the price, or would you be against me asking a few questions so I can customize that price for you and give you something more specific? Which will be best for you, Bill? One price that is a wide range, or if I ask you a few quick questions? I gave it back to him a bit, going toe to toe, but then I gave him a choice because he wanted to be the boss and make the decision. So being able to listen actively and understand who Bill was allowed me to do that. Again, these are the sources of shout outs. You're going to find them in the skill track that's live in triple session right now. If you're a current member, you're going to get a one-page PDF. We're at 20 minutes right now on the button. Next skill track is coming out. The next Tuesday sprint is coming out on communication styles. So we talked a little bit about communication styles here in rapport. I got a lot of questions on this that already came back to me when I launched this training once before. So we're going to go deep into communication styles on our next Tuesday sprint session. With that, I'm going to open it up, stay here for another 10 minutes. Any questions, pop it in the chat. We're going to open it up right now and field questions for the next 10 minutes. Let's see who we got. I'm going to stop sharing. While I'm doing this, if somebody wants to jump in, sign up for that next sprint skill training that we're going to have next week. Link is right there. You can jump right in, and we're going to go really deep into the skill track next week on communication styles and really drill into who those 4 communication styles are, what makes them tick, how they operate, what we really need to do to effectively communicate through the entire sales process with them, not just when we're building rapport, but throughout every phase of the process, discovery, presenting, everything. How can I reverse a failed rapport? So this is a tricky one, right? So rapport is like a wallet. It's like a bank account where you're starting to build some rapport, you're starting to get that connection, and then you feel like you've lost it. You feel like, I haven't connected with this person, or maybe even you have pissed them off, right? Maybe you've driven them into the opposite situation where you've kind of gone in the other direction. I have another story like that where I started to sell to this woman. She was a lawyer, and I thought I was making some good rapport with her. She said, oh, I got to go over to my in-laws' house this weekend and, you know, deal with all of them and have the holiday over there. And I said, oh, cool. What does your husband do? And she said, well, Matt, I don't have a husband. Okay. I have a wife. I'm like, and instantly she gave it to me. She's like, I thought someone from Boston might be able to be more open-minded and not just assume that I was married to a man. And then she just went on and on and on about how I completely put my foot in my mouth, assuming that when she said she was married and had in-laws, she was married to a man and not to a woman. So I said, okay, the one thing, and I'm going to answer this question right now, how do you reverse it? How did I reverse it? So first, apology, immediately took responsibility, said, you know what? Yeah, I'm kind of hardwired that way, and my mistake. I got to be a bit more open-minded. You're absolutely right. I appreciate that. And let me ask you, now that I've put my foot in my mouth here and kind of gone down this road, how do you see it best that we could work together? How can we go back to the beginning here? Oftentimes, again, people can be open to making a mistake, getting off track, not really delivering for them initially. But what everybody really responds to is somebody who is humble, somebody who is genuine, and somebody who is open to work with. What are the traits that everybody can respect and want to gravitate towards that they will give you another shot? How do you earn another shot with somebody? You have to verbalize it and be able to live up to that. And if you're able to do that, you can turn it around. I ultimately ended up turning around that conversation, worked with that woman. It was great. And she ultimately ended up buying from me, which was even better. But I first had to turn around that big faux pas that I made, where it was I made an assumption that really rubbed her the wrong way, and I need to get it back. And it was right in the beginning. So admit it when you go down a certain path, be transparent about it, be humble, and ask for another shot. If you really want to make it work and you want to have that relationship, people will be patient and they'll give it to you. They will be open-minded. If they're not, you're never going to get the deal anyway, so get the hell out of there. Matt, say you have 4 or 5 people of the company, one on Zoom call. Do you attempt to build rapport with everyone on the call? This is a great question. This is one I've heard a number of times. Ideally, yes. Reality, no. You're never going to have enough time. You're never going to be able to go around the room and be able to understand and manipulate and move and have that agility to connect with everybody. It's going to suck all the energy out of the call. It's going to suck all the energy out of the meeting and really drain the whole situation. What you need to do as a savvy salesperson when you're in those group meetings, whether they're online or in a team, the one thing that you can do that is going to maximize the best results is find who the alpha is. It might not be your champion, but there will be an alpha. It might not be the economic buyer or the person who signs the contract, but there will be an alpha. What do I mean by alpha? An alpha is somebody who will control and drive the conversation from the customer's standpoint. They will be the ones who are giving you more feedback, the ones who are asking you the questions the most, the ones who are really controlling the pace of the conversation. Sometimes it's a user, sometimes it's a technical buyer. Oftentimes it is an owner, an economic buyer, decision maker, call them what you will. You need to identify who that person is and build rapport with that one person. How do you do that? Well, if you're in a group meeting like that, hopefully you've been able to meet with a champion along the way. It's not the very first meeting that you've gotten into, and you could do some homework and understand who in the meeting is the one that's really going to be driving the conversation. Who's going to be the one that I need to focus on presenting to the most, and the one who's going to be most engaged that we need to bring into the decision-making consensus. If you have that preparation, it's great. If not, you need to lob out a few questions and understand who's going to be first to respond to them. Who is going to be the one that declares how they're going to meet. So you can do that by delivering a quick agenda in the beginning of the meeting. Hey, great to meet everybody here. Just so we get the most use of the time, we're going to do A, B, C, and D. Is that good for everybody? How does everybody feel about that agenda? And listen, see how they respond and who's going to respond. And then if you don't hear anything, get much there. Is there anything that's not on this agenda that we need to make sure that we cover today, or any initial questions that anyone has that I need to make sure I take care of? And again, you're listening to see who's going to pony up and stand up and respond to that question. When you're sending out those little warning shots and those little flares into the meeting group, the alpha will call himself or herself out. They will stand up and say, nope, that's good. Even if you don't get much, the first person who says, nope, that looks good, let's go. There's your alpha. That's the person you're presenting to. And that's the one that if you don't know who they are right now, what you might want to do is say, okay, hey, person XYZ, I understand this is going to be your first call. Just before I jump in, what do you already know about what we've talked about? Where is it coming from? What do you do? And really get their stake into the conversation and do a little one-on-one rapport there. That's it. So that's our 2010. We had a 20-minute sprint training, 10 minutes of Q&A. If you have other questions, jump into our Slack community. We have a Slack group there, Q&A. If you didn't get to your questions here, I will jump into the Slack and answer any questions that you have. You have specific cases where you're working to build rapport, you want to crack the code on it, jump in, we'll do a little Q&A, talk about specific deals. If you want to go deep into communication styles, which we talked about here, jump into our next 20-minute sprint. Love to have you. Remember always, practice makes progress, everybody. Get your reps in. See you.